Now if we could just get comfortable and just take 2 or 3 deep breaths. And with the in-breath, just breathe in peace, harmony. And with the out-breath, just let go of any thoughts, any cares of the day. And with the in-breath, breathe in relaxation. And with the out-breath, just let go of any stress, any tension. There's nowhere you need to go, nothing you need to do. Just allow yourself to be present in this moment, the only moment that there is. And if we could just do the head and neck and breathing exercises. Now the first prayer of attunement and protection, the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. And now the affirmation, which is from Search for God. Know thyself. Father, as we seek to see and know thy face, may we each as individuals and as a group come to know ourselves even as we are known, that we, as lights in thee, may give the better concept of thy Spirit in this world. And now the second prayer of protection. As we open our hearts to the unseen forces that surround the throne of grace, beauty, and might, we throw about ourselves the protection found in the thought of the Christ. And if we could just go into the silence for 8 to 10 minutes. Would you end your meditations now, please, and bring your awareness back to your room? And Father, Mother God, we give thanks for this opportunity of meeting with Thee in the silence. And we humbly pray that the energy that we have raised during our meditation may now go out to those who are in need of healing, who are in need of prayer, protection, support in any way. Thou knowest who they are, and we would especially pray for all those who have no one else to pray for them. Thank you, Father. Amen. So if you could unmute your microphones.
Thank you, Russell. That's good.
Now, we've got quite a long presentation, or part of the presentation is quite long tonight. I was looking at how to shorten it, but there was just nothing that I could delete out of it, so I had to keep it all in there. Luckily, that's the bit that I'm presenting. If I lose my voice, that's on me.
So the first presentation for tonight is from Meditation and the Mind of Man, Chapter 4, Meditation. The definition of meditation. The Edgar Cayce readings offer several definitions of meditation. In each case, the focus is upon an attunement process which involves the aligning or harmonizing of the body, mind, and soul of man. Such an attunement makes it possible for man to attune the spirit within to the universal spirit. What is meditation? It is not musing, not daydreaming, but as you find your bodies made up of the physical, mental, and spiritual, it is the attuning of the mental body and the physical body to its spiritual source. Meditation is emptying self of all that hinders the creative forces from rising along the natural channels of the physical man to be disseminated through those centers and sources that create the activities of the physical, the mental, the spiritual man. Properly done, must make one stronger mentally, physically. There are certain concepts expressed in these definitions that should be emphasized. First is the word natural. Meditation is not to be understood as an attempt by man to create physical, mental, or spiritual experiences that he is not meant to have. The creative energies within man seek to flow upward and lift his consciousness. The drive to raise one's consciousness is just as natural or indeed more natural than the physical drives of the body, such as hunger, thirst, and sex. Don't seek for unnatural or supernatural. It is the natural. It is nature. It is God's activity. His associations with man, his desire to make for man a way for an understanding. A second significant concept in these definitions is that there exists that which can hinder or block man's contact with the spiritual source. The process of meditation relates directly to how one can deal with those hindrances. We might think of such hindrances as the accumulation of thought forms, desire patterns, and their accompanying physical processes. These limiting and selfish patterns are built throughout the history of the soul. Meditation is emptying self of all that hinders, or letting go of our involvement with those patterns that would limit us in favor of a higher pattern that will restore the awareness of our true nature. The readings indicate that these same thought patterns which create an obstacle in meditation are involved in the process of the attraction of the soul back into the earth time and again. As we deal with these patterns in meditation, we are beginning to free ourselves from the cycle of incarnations. A definition of meditation from The Secret of the Golden Flower emphasizes this point. The circulation of the light is not only the circulation of the seed blossom of the individual body, but it is even the circulation of the true creative, formative energies. It is not a momentary fantasy, but the exhaustion of the cycle of soul migrations of all the eons, page 32. Perhaps the most concise yet comprehensive definition is that meditation is the practicing of the first part of the Great Commandment. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. Matthew 22:37. Reflection upon this great commandment should give us some insight into the true spirit and purpose of meditation. The purpose of meditation. Understood properly, the true purpose for practicing meditation should be the desire to be one with God. Because of our love for Him, we must be careful that we do not make a mental list of reasons for meditating, such as, I am going to meditate because it will make me more healthy, more psychic, and more able to get by on less sleep. When we do this, our motivation is to get something for ourselves. If we wish to move away from the language of karma and conditionality and into the language of love, we must be eager to meditate simply because we seek to be attuned to God. To do otherwise, to set expectations or seek results, would be like a man saying to his wife, I am going to love you so that I will be sure that you will do these certain things for me. The readings express this point by warning us not to meditate for, but to meditate to. Our concern should not be for the results that may come from regular meditation. Rather, our aim to, should be to grow to a state of attunement with a spiritual source. In a reading recommending that he begin a program of regular meditation, one man was told, this we would keep, but don't be anxious about it. Let it be a necessity to thy better being rather than giving or having the meditation for better being. It's like whether you are baptized For, or baptized to, it's the same application within the inner self. You have the meditation because you desire to be attuned with creative forces. You don't have the meditation because it's a duty or because you want to feel better, but to attune self to the infinite. The Eastern tradition stresses much the same approach as is recommended in the reading above. This approach is illustrated in the following story. A man once came to the Buddha to discuss his long practice of meditation. He said, I have been meditating for 20 years, and now I can levitate across the river. The Buddha replied, you have been wasting your time. For a nickel, you could have taken the boat at any time. There are many benefits which may accrue from the regular practice of meditation, including psychic development and miraculous or magical powers, or siddhis as they are called in the East. However, our love for and desire to be one with God should be the motivating purpose and spirit of meditation. Of course, that desire finds its manifestation in our compliance with the second part of the commandment to love our neighbor as ourselves, as we in our daily lives apply and become the spirit of love which we have awakened in our meditation. Nevertheless, we must not concern ourselves with results. The Bhagavad Gita says, he who does the task dictated by duty, caring nothing for the fruit of the action, he is a yogi, a true sannyasin. Page 62. In the secret of the golden flower, we read, the decision must be carried out with a collected heart and not seeking success. Success will then come of itself. Page 40. The Bible expresses the same thought in these words, God giveth the increase. 1 Corinthians 2:7. And the readings say, don't be anxious about it. Another story from the East tells of a Shila who came to his guru and said, Master, I want to see God. Immediately the teacher grasped his student by the hair, dragged him into the nearby river, and held his head under water while he struggled, nearly drowning. Then the guru raised him up and calmly said, when you want to see God as much as you wanted that breath of air, you may begin to make some progress. Reading the Song of Solomon in the Old Testament can give us a sense of the longing of the lover for the loved one. We must then transfer that awareness quickly to awaken a deeper feeling for the great commandment to love God with all our hearts and minds and souls. The second side of the motivational basis for meditation, which corresponds to the second portion of the commandment to love our neighbor as ourselves, can be amplified by reflecting on this passage from the secret of the golden flower. One must not content oneself with small demands, but must rise to the thought that all living creatures have to be redeemed. One must not be trivial and irresponsible in heart, but must strive to make deeds prove one's words. Page 48. The purpose of meditation combined with application is to live the great commandment to love God with all your heart and your neighbor as yourself. Matthew 22:37-39. Preparation for meditation. In meditation, we are dealing with a great power. Preparation is most prudent. As Jesus admonished his disciples, we should not approach the temple without putting things right with our fellow man. Therefore, if thou bring thy gift to the altar, and there rememberest that thy brother hath aught against thee, leave there thy gift before the altar, and go thy way. First, be reconciled to thy brother, and then come and offer thy gift. Matthew 5:23 to 24. One continuously applicable implication of this teaching is that if we intend to approach the throne daily in our meditation, we must also be out correcting things in our daily lives. Such preparation is an individual matter. The Old Testament preparations for the tabernacle worship are very challenging in this regard. Each person must decide for himself what activities create a greater sense of devotion and openness for meditation. Some find that cleansing the physical body is important. Others find particular exercises or disciplines helpful. Many feel that a prayer of protection at the beginning of meditation is important. One such prayer is, Father, as I open myself to the unseen forces that surround the throne of grace and beauty and might, I throw about myself the protection found in the thought of the Christ. One shouldn't just utter this as a magic ritual and then expect that he is going to be protected. Instead, one should use it as an aid for sensing or experiencing the true protective presence of the Christ. Certainly, for every person, attitudes and emotions are a significant aspect of preparation. The way that we have been using the mind in our daily lives will have a great effect upon our capacity to still and focus it in meditation. Thus, preparation is not just the things that we do 5 or 10 minutes before the meditation period. We are constantly preparing ourselves. For the promise has ever been, look within. Meet thy Maker in the temple within. For the body is indeed the temple of the living God, and he has promised to meet thee there in the Holy of Holies, in the mount within. And his promises are sure. How has been the pattern in such meetings? Has not the edict been ever? Purify yourselves, your bodies, for on the morrow thy God would speak with thee? Hast thou not learned he is ever the same, yesterday, today, and forever? Then prepare thyself in that way and manner that seemeth to thee in thine experience, in thy consciousness to meet thy Maker. Then, as you use those material preparations, they only give to the body a greater consciousness through their application to the body of the necessity of every atom cooperating in that direction. Question 2. Just what preparation would you advise for the body now? Answer 2. This should be rather the choice of the body from its own development than from what any other individual entity or source might give. Purify the body, purify the mind, that the principle, the choice of ideals as made by the entity may be made manifest. Do whatever is required for this, whether the washing of the body, the surrounding with this or that influence, or that of whatever nature. The use of an affirmation. The basic principle in the readings concerning the practice of meditation is that the spirit and purpose are more important than technique. We should each begin with the best understanding that we have of how to meet God within the temple, which is the body. Yes, we must learn to meditate, but growth in understanding and attunement can always take place from whatever point at which we find ourselves. We must be assured in the depths of our being that it is not we ourselves, the meditators, that do the work, but the power of the Spirit within, which is responsive to our sincerity and openness. We must neither place limitation on the way in which the spirit can work, nor expect to manipulate the spirit by adherence to proper ritual. The question always arises in the mind of the meditator as to whether or not he is using the proper technique. When one person asks if she were meditating properly, the readings replied, "Be confident that in him all things are done well." This answer may be more instructive than it seems at first glance. The sense that he is meditating me should alleviate all doubts about proper procedure. It is the process of being moved by the intensity of the desire and the letting go of effortless effort that allows the infinite forces to begin to interpenetrate and transform the finite man. As we come to understand that the body is the temple and that the Old Testament instructions for the tabernacle worship are externally projected patterns of internal processes, we come to the principle that all external rituals of worship may be projections of the patterns of attunement processes. For example, the sacrifice of the best animals in the flock symbolizes a willingness to give up our favorite lower emotions in preference for attunement. The study of the symbology of the Mass should be highly instructive regarding the inner process of attunement in meditation. On occasion, it becomes the hope of practitioners of religious rituals that if they but perform the ritual properly, regardless of their motive and spirit, they can be assured of the efficacious flow of the power of God. This way of thinking can also become a problem for the meditator who may hope results due to proper, even scientific technique with no consideration of either motive or application. Are there procedures which enhance the meditation experience? To be sure, and this will be given in step-by-step detail. However, they are guides to, not guarantees of, attunement. Who shall ascend into the hill of the Lord? Or who shall stand in his holy place? He that hath clean hands and a pure heart. Psalm 24, 3-4. Some of the readings indicate that the use of certain aids or techniques should be adopted as the result of attunement, not as the cause. If we become too focused upon the form of the technique or the technique of these procedures, it is easy to lose sight of the true sense of the purpose of meditation. When you are moved by full accord, use the intonations, the breathing, the posture, but let this be rather an outgrowth of attunement than the purpose for attunement. If form becomes that is the guiding element, then the hope or the faith is lost in form. That concludes the first reading for tonight.
Very good.
Thank you, Lolita. That's very interesting in the way that was so focused on that it's not the way that you meditate, the form that you use, the type of meditation you do, or any preparation, or the type of preparation. But preparation is obviously important, but the focus being on the spirit in which you do it, and the fact that you should be doing it for the attunement, not for what you can get out of it. I think stood out to me from that.
I think that's the best message of the presentation. The motivation to the motivation to meditate, because sometimes we forget that and we focus on the other benefits. And the second one is the form. It's not the form at all. The mantra with the hands or whatever the formation, or the way you sit, your sitting position. It's not. It's really attunement to the creative force. It's really attunement to God. Oh well, yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's not really the technique, but
Yeah.
the intention of our hearts, which actually translate into not just into meditation, but actually, going to church. Everyone is so focused on the
Mhm.
rituals without
Yeah.
really going within and ask ourselves, is my heart in the right place? Am I Have I forgiven someone, or am I harboring hatred for my enemies, or you know what I mean? It's not it's
Yeah.
not the ritual, but the
Mhm.
state of our heart.
This is such a humbling.
Definitely good advice on what to focus
Yeah.
on. Yeah.
This is such a humbling presentation.
Oh,
The insights from it.
Hmm. It brings to mind my departed husband. He was very much into Aikido, and after he passed away, I was invited by the group to actually come and meet all the teachers, and the teacher actually in his halting English said that if I am going to give you a grading in Aikido, it will be fifth dan, which is higher than what he has given my husband. And I thought he was ridiculing me, or he was being sarcastic. And I said to the interpreter, can you please ask him why he said that? And in his halting English, he didn't even uh, let his interpreter to interpret. He said, Aikido students think that it's about the technique, and he put his fist on his heart. It's about the heart. It's about the heart. It's not about the technique. And that really relates to what we have just read tonight,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
I
by the
nearly
way,
cried.
Lolita, we have an Aikido sensei in our
Oh,
group
have
in the
you?
Philippines.
Oh,
Yeah, I hope
wow.
you'll meet. I hope when you join, you'll meet him.
I will. I
Yes,
hope
please.
so. Yeah, I hope so, because I think about after Christmas, we're just
Yeah.
having a wedding here in Sydney in October. But after
Mhm.
that, we're starting a restaurant in my hometown. So I think I'll be going back to the Philippines for a few weeks to help
Where's
set up
your
the
hometown?
restaurant.
Where's your hometown?
Laguna, in Lumban, Laguna,
Oh,
near Pagsangan.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah. That's in Luzon. So yeah, I
yeah,
can
yeah.
visit you.
90 kilometers south of Manila. Yeah.
Yeah. But the Aikido sensei, he transferred to Dumaguete. He lives there now.
Yeah. Sorry to divert the
Sorry. Yeah.
discussion.
That's quite okay.
How interesting. Yeah.
Okay, well, now this next segment is quite long, so we'll get through it.
Okay.
This is the continuing chapter 4, isn't it?
Continuation of chapter 4. And it's a lot of it is about how to use affirmations, or
Oh,
Good.
yeah.
whatever you're using as the focal point for your meditation.
Okay.
Okay.
And really it's about the way of looking at a process which is probably 3-stage process. One is to think about it. Say, for instance, you've got your affirmation that you're going to use is be still and know that I am one with God. Now, the first part of the process of using that affirmation is you're thinking about it. And if you get distracted, you come back to thinking about it again. And then, according to this book, the second part is then feeling that affirmation. What does that feel like to be one with God? What does that actually feel like? So you go beyond the thinking into the feeling. But then the third, deeper process is being. to actually be one with God, rather than thinking about it or feeling it, to actually be, to know that you are one with God and be one with God. And once you've reached that stage,
Wow.
you truly are really one with God, and yeah, just, you're not actually doing meditation, you are just one with God. So I thought that was a really very interesting thing, but unfortunately there's a lot of slides that take us through that process, so I better get started. So, Meditation in the Mind of Man, Chapter 4, the meditation continued. We must not wait until we think we have the right technique to begin to meditate. No technique will ensure his presence. Only a sincere and open invitation will. Among the ideas suggested in the readings on meditation are the effectiveness of working with a small group, the desirability of choosing the same place and time each day, and the importance of keeping the spine straight, performing breathing exercises, chanting, and using incense properly. Concern over the amount of time that we should spend in daily meditation can cause us to lose sight of the purpose of meditating. The effects of just a moment of contact with the inner self far outweigh those of sitting for hours without the proper attitude or motivation trying to meditate. How long was the experience of Saul in the way to Damascus? How long was the experience of Stephen as he saw the Master standing, not sitting, standing? How long was the experience of those that saw the vision that beckoned to them, or any such experience? For did the Father or infinity bring the earth, the worlds into existence? How much greater is a day in the house of the Lord, or a moment in his presence, than 1,000 years in carnal forces? Hence a soul, even for a flash or for a breath, has perhaps experienced even as much as Saul in the way. Spend that time necessary to know you are in accord, but spend more time in carrying out the directions given in such periods. For unless one may make practical in daily life the tenets or teachings obtained by meditation, these are worth little to the entity itself. Undoubtedly, the most important suggestion from the readings concerns what to do with the mind during meditation. That which is held mentally in meditation is that which is being built. As a tool for the attunement process of meditation, the readings recommend the use of an affirmation, a brief statement of the ideal or purpose towards which the meditator seeks to grow. Whereas some schools of meditation see the mind as the enemy and would teach that it must be blanked out for proper meditation to occur, the approach described in the readings is based upon the principle that the mind is the way. This is not to deny that the mind includes habits and memories that are stumbling blocks in meditation. However, it does suggest that meditation must be a holistic process. The mind plays the vital role in attuning both the physical and the mental to the spiritual source. Also, the readings suggest that written on the mind as a pattern is the awareness of our oneness with God, which we seek to awaken. Our understanding of the role of the mind in meditation is closely tied to the distinction between prayer and meditation. Prayer is an activity of the conscious mind. It is an outpouring of conscious thoughts in our attempt to attune ourselves to God. On the other hand, meditation involves a quieting of the conscious mind. It is a receptive state. To use a simple analogy, prayer would be talking to God and meditation would be listening. Both of these practices are important to our spiritual growth. Our capacity to meditate effectively is closely related to our ability to pray effectively. The Edgar Cayce readings and some other sources describe the use of the mind in meditation as being twofold. First, we seek to awaken with the imaginative forces a particular response in the mental body. Then, having awakened that consciousness, we seek to be still, quiet, and receptive. This alert listening stance of the mind allows the awakened pattern of this higher state of consciousness literally to be built into our physical bodies. To look more closely at the purpose and practice of using an affirmation, consider the following reading. Keep in mind that the affirmation should be a capsulization of that which we have chosen as our spiritual ideal. Question 1. How may I bring into activity my pineal and pituitary glands, as well as the Kundalini and other chakras, that I may attain to higher mental and spiritual powers? Are there exercises for this purpose? Answer. First, so fill the mind with the ideal that it may vibrate throughout the whole of the mental being. Then close the desires of the fleshly self to conditions about same. Meditate upon thy will with me. Feel same. Fill all the centers of the body from the lowest to the highest with that ideal, opening the centers by surrounding self first with that consciousness. Not my will, but thine, O Lord, be done in and through me. In this passage, two affirmations are suggested, one an abbreviated version of the other. However, in each case, the ideal expressed involves the meditator's desire to make his will one with the divine will. The reading first suggests that the spirit of this state of mind be allowed to fill the entire mental being. This, of course, involves a one-pointedness of mind. The reading then goes on to suggest that as this is done, there will be a response within the body that perhaps may even be felt. That response will be especially related to the activities of the 7 spiritual centers. Some have found that at the beginning of meditation, it is helpful actually to think of those 7 spiritual centers and to visualize them being filled with light or with the consciousness of the ideal. However, it is not necessary, nor even advisable, to think about the spiritual centers throughout the meditation period. As we are able to sustain a one-pointedness of mind and purpose, the appropriate physiological response will take place naturally. A question frequently arises as to whether or not achieving the beneficial results of meditation is simply a matter of saying the words of the affirmation. Certainly, there is a long tradition according to which power is associated with particular words. It is possible that the major reason for the commandment regarding taking the Lord's name in vain was to retain the energy-evoking qualities of the names of God and their potential for aiding us in attuning to his presence within. However, many sources suggest that drawing upon this power is not simply a matter of saying the word. The verbal sound must be accompanied by an inner awareness of the word's deepest spiritual meaning. The most immediate application of this principle to our practice of meditation lies in the fact that the affirmation is not to be repeated over and over again. As the Master said, use not vain repetitions, from Matthew 6:7. Instead, we should feel the meaning behind the words, and this requires periods of silence. It also should be noted that we are not to do an intellectual analysis of the affirmation during meditation. On the contrary, we should focus our attention on awakening the spirit within the words. Intellectual analysis of the affirmation has its place, but it should be done before the actual meditation period. A word from Eastern traditions of meditation which relates closely to our concept of an affirmation is mantra. The definition of a mantra as a mind tool is explained in the following passage. In the word mantra, the root man equals to think, in Greek, menos, Latin, mens, is combined with the element tra, which forms tool words. Thus, mantra is a tool for thinking. From Foundations of Tibetan Mysticism, page 19. Mantras do not act on account of their own magic nature, but only through the mind that experiences them. They do not possess any power of their own. They are only the means for concentrating already existing forces. Just as a magnifying glass, though it does not contain any heat of its own, is able to concentrate the rays of the sun and to transform their mild warmth into incandescent heat. From Foundations of Tibetan Mysticism, pages 27-28. The function of affirmations that is suggested in the Edgar Cayce readings might be better understood by considering another Eastern term, dharanis. Dharanis are meant for fixing the mind upon an idea, a vision, or an experience gained in meditation. They may represent the quintessence of a teaching as well as the experience of a certain state of consciousness, which hereby can be recalled or recreated deliberately at any time. Therefore, they are also called supporters, receptacles, or bearers of wisdom. Vidyadharara. They are not different from mantras in their function, but to some extent in their form, insofar as they may attain a considerable length and sometimes represent a combination of many mantras or seed syllables, Bhoja mantras, or the quintessence of a sacred text. They were a product as well as a means of meditation. Through deep absorption, samadhi, one gains a truth through a dharani, or one fixes and retains it, from Foundations of Tibetan Mysticism, pages 31-32. Let us consider the affirmations given for the Search for God study group to be, by this definition, dharanis. Thus, these affirmations are not different from mantras in their function, but to some extent in their form, insofar as they may attain a considerable length and sometimes represent a combination of many mantras or seed syllables. The Search for God readings may be thought of as a sacred text of which the affirmations represent the quintessence. They were a product of Edgar Cayce's meditation or samadhi, as well as a means of meditation for us to be used as supporters, receptacles, or bearers of wisdom. In the light of these suggestions, let us consider the wisdom of the approach put forth in A Search for God. The particular chapter under consideration constitutes the sacred text, which gives us a new understanding of spiritual law. With the affirmation as the quintessence of that text, we awaken an authentic spirit within ourselves. Then, with the selection of a discipline or an experiment, we apply that truth and truly fix and retain it. Thus, we have a triple method of making fast the enlightenment in place of the double method mentioned below. Now let us inquire one step deeper into the use of the affirmation in relationship to the silence. In The Secret of the Golden Flower, we find some especially helpful, though difficult, instructions. Fixating contemplation is indispensable. It ensures the making fast of the enlightenment. Only one must not stay sitting rigidly if worldly thoughts come up, but one must examine where the thought is, where it began, and where it fades out. When the flight of thoughts keep extending further, one should stop and begin contemplating. Let one contemplate and then start fixating again. That is the double method of making fast the enlightenment. It means the circulation of the light. Page 36. Several of the words and phrases used here might be translated into expressions used in the readings. The word fixation refers to being silent, while the integrative hormonal secretions move to every cell in the body. This is literally circulation. Contemplation can be understood as the awakening of the response through focusing attention upon an affirmation. Finally, light is one creative force allowed to flow by the awakening motive. If we use these definitions along with some additional rewording, the above passage might read, being silent after awakening the response is indispensable. It ensures that the effect of the good spirit that is awakened will be felt in the tissues and cells of the body. When the flight of thoughts keeps extending further, one should stop and return to awaken the spirit with the affirmation. Let one affirm and then be silent again. That is the double method of making fast the enlightenment. The text continues by offering a pair of equivalencies. This is followed by a description of the two fundamental problems that can arise for the meditator. The circulation is fixation. The light is contemplation. Fixation without contemplation is circulation without light. Contemplation without fixation is light without circulation. Take note of that on page 36. The circulation is fixation. As soon as the one energy begins to move in meditation, it is building something. Anytime we are dealing with the one energy, the mind is patterning and crystallizing it at the fourth dimensional level. The light is contemplation. Within an affirmation such as the Lord's Prayer, there is an expression of the Christ pattern, the light. If we will use the affirmation correctly, that is, with openness and sincerity of purpose, we will have access to that perfect pattern written within ourselves from the beginning. See page 9, chapter 1, which discusses this pattern. As an interpretation of the remainder of the quoted passage, consider two hypothetical meditators, A and B, each of whom makes one of the two fundamental mistakes in the practice of meditation. A is able to concentrate in meditation, dwell upon a mantric thought, and sense the movement of energy through himself. Yet he has focused his mind upon something less than an expression of the highest ideal that he knows. Let us suppose that he has chosen to focus his attention on sex. Fixation without contemplation is circulation without light. Without a spiritual intent and purpose held in mind, the movement and patterning of energy fails to fulfill the transformative potential of the meditative process. B has chosen to use an affirmation which expresses the highest ideal that she knows, yet in her attempt to meditate, she was unable to go beyond just repeating it over and over. The stillness of resting in the spirit of the affirmation is essential. Contemplation without fixation is light without circulation. For the full potential of meditation to be realized, the strictly intellectual part of the mind must let go and allow the flow and fixation of the pattern of love expressed in the affirmation. How are we to use the silence? We should awaken a motivational response and hold that feeling in the silence. If we drift away, we can, as the Secret of the Golden Flower says, make a medicine of the illness. We do this by taking just enough note of the distracting thought to renew a sense that only the Spirit of Christ can handle that concern. We are re-motivated to attune ourselves to Him. We return to the spirit of the affirmation and hold the silence again. We can now combine these insights from the Edgar Cayce readings and from several Eastern texts to produce a comprehensive and systematic approach to the use of affirmations. Our approach will be based upon the following three important principles. 1. The term mind can refer to more than just the intellectual, analytical function of the mind. There exists as well the intuitive, feeling, and imaginative faculties of the mind. 2. There is already written upon the mind, the soul mind of every individual, the pattern of the awareness of our oneness with God. It is this pattern within the mind that we seek to awaken during meditation. And 3, until we become extremely adept in deep meditation, our meditation periods will tend to move back and forth between 2 poles. On the one hand, there is the conscious effort through prayer or the words of an affirmation to awaken in the conscious mind a particular state of awareness. On the other hand, once that awareness has been awakened, we hold the essence of its spirit in silence. It is only when we have lost the feeling or the spirit associated with the affirmation that we move back to say and feel the words again. In principle, this systematic approach may seem very simple. However, in practice, it may take years of work before we are able to hold in silence for prolonged periods the spirit of our affirmation. Let us consider some of the problems that may arise. Imagine that you have been sitting in silence with your attention held one-pointedly upon the spirit of your ideal, but after a time you realize that your mind has wandered off. Perhaps you hear an aeroplane passing overhead, perhaps you hear a child playing out in the street, and you catch yourself following that distraction. At this point, there are several things that you can do. One is to become very upset with yourself, to become very discouraged or frustrated and say, "Oh, I'm never going to learn how to do this." However, this reaction is contrary to the spirit you are trying to awaken in meditation, and it is actually counterproductive. Such thoughts of self-criticism will not be helpful when your mind wanders from the affirmation. Another possibility is simply to bring yourself back to your one-pointed focus by saying your affirmation again. This method will often be effective, however, it involves one serious difficulty. Recall that in meditation we are seeking to awaken the consciousness of oneness and wholeness. If we start trying to block out external or internal distractions, we have created a sense of duality. On the one hand, there are those things that we think of as being helpful to our meditation. On the other, there are those that we try to block out because we feel they are detrimental. Although such a process of forced concentration may be somewhat successful, there is a third alternative. This involves using the distraction to take you deeper into meditation. It is a matter of letting a stumbling block become a stepping stone, using a weakness and making it into a strength, or making a medicine of the illness. Let us consider 2 simple examples of experiencing you might have. Imagine yourself sitting in meditation, using the affirmation, "Let me be a channel of blessings to others." For a time, you are able to focus on feeling the inner meaning of these words. You are maintaining the silence, only occasionally finding it necessary to repeat the words. Then a plane passes overhead and you catch yourself thinking about the plane. Once again, you have several alternatives. You can get frustrated with yourself or with the pilot of the plane. You can just say the affirmation again, yanking your attention back and seeking to block out this distraction. Or you can choose the third alternative and seek to use the distraction to take you deeper into meditation. In this case, doing this would involve taking a moment to be a channel of blessings to the people in that plane, saying a brief prayer for them. This may take 10 or 15 seconds, but at some point you will find yourself back in the spirit of the words of the affirmation. Now imagine a second example, one in which you are using the same affirmation and an internal distraction arises. Suppose you find yourself thinking about some difficult, troublesome situation at work. Instead of becoming frustrated with your mind for having wandered off, and instead of trying to block out this thought, you might make use of the distraction by taking a moment to be a channel of blessings to this situation at work. Through a few moments of prayer directed toward this condition, you will once again find yourself back in the spirit of your affirmation, feeling the inner meaning of its words. The diagram below is a simple illustration of this process. So the wandering attention becomes a distraction, internal or external, but using that distraction to return back to the feeling, the spirit of the affirmation. The following diagram is an adaptation of a model developed earlier in this book. Recall that our initial model involved 3 primary levels of mind: conscious, subconscious, and superconscious. In this adaptation, we are using planes instead of sections of a cone to represent these 3 levels. In the diagram below, we also find a symbolic representation of the use of an affirmation in meditation. The letter P in the superconscious region symbolises the highest pattern of wholeness and oneness, which already exists within us, i.e. the Christ consciousness. The letter W at the right of our model symbolises the words of our affirmation, an affirmation which capsulises our spiritual ideal. And the letter A represents the conscious awareness that those words are potentially able to awaken within us. Our purpose in meditation is to awaken a consciousness which has some correspondence with that perfect pattern within the superconscious mind. At the thinking level, the conscious level, we have W, which is the words. And then that leads us to the affirmation and up to the superconscious pattern. So we're actually going from the conscious level through the subconscious up to the superconscious level. Now let us consider the qualities of these 3 planes of experience. Thinking is especially characteristic of the conscious mind. Feeling in the sense of emotions is a function of the subconscious mind. In dealing with this level, it is important to note that there are feelings or emotions related to the upper 3 spiritual centers. Finally, the experience of beingness itself relates to the superconscious mind. In the first 2 functions, thinking and feeling, we have aspects of duality. There is the experiencer and there is that which he can observe as the content of experience, whether it is a thought or a feeling. At the 3rd level, there is a oneness between the experiencer and the content of the experience. The meditator is united with the spirit upon which he has been focusing. The following diagram is an illustration of the first step of meditation, in which the entire conscious mind is focused upon the single thought of the affirmation. In a sense, there is energy associated with focusing upon that single thought. So at the conscious level, the thinking level, we focus our attention on the affirmation. What frequently happens is that quite soon the mind begins to wander around, being distracted by other thoughts. Periodically, we become aware of what we are doing and direct the mind back to the affirmation. But during meditation periods in which this happens continually, our focus remains primarily at the thinking level. This activity might accurately be characterized as a reverie or a daydream. It is illustrated in the diagram below. So there's our affirmation is somewhere in the thinking conscious mental level, but things are wandering around. So we're a bit of a daydream. On the other hand, the energy associated with focusing on the single thought of the affirmation can be used in a different way. If we can hold that thought in silence, we can become aware of the corresponding feeling or spirit, the inner meaning of the affirmation. This kind of movement is shown in the following diagram. So we've got the affirmation that we're focusing on at the thinking conscious level, but we start to get a feeling. What is the feeling of that affirmation? That's coming up now to the subconscious level, the spirit or meaning of the affirmation. However, even focusing upon the feeling of the affirmation involves a concentration of energy. Many people find that after a few moments, that energy is used to drift to a different feeling. Once we have arrived at a different feeling, it will usually awaken a corresponding thought at the thinking level. The thought will, of course, be perceived as a distracting one. This process happens very quickly. One moment we are silently holding the feeling of our affirmation, and the next thing we know, we are thinking about something totally unrelated to our purpose in meditation. However, if we go back and examine what has taken place, we will likely find that just before the distracting thought came to mind, we had drifted into an associated feeling. This process is illustrated below. So thinking at the conscious level and focusing on the feeling of the affirmation, but which then awakened a different feeling at that level, the subconscious level, which then creates a distracting thought, not the thought of the affirmation. Once we have moved back down to the thought level, we must once again focus the imaginative forces upon the single thought of the affirmation. The diagram immediately above demonstrates one of the key points in our work with an affirmation. What we must learn to do is to catch ourselves at the feeling level and return immediately to the feeling associated with the affirmation. What are the feelings to which we drift away? Many people have found that they wander into feelings of doubt and fear. For example, the fear of going into any deeper into meditation, or into the feelings about daily life which they were entertaining just before meditation. If we can hold in silence that single feeling, then the energy associated with focusing at that point can be used to move once again, this time to the level of being. Here we are one with the ideal that is expressed by the affirmation. Here we are that ideal. There is a transformation in consciousness and we experience our oneness with God. This is the aim of deep meditation, to experience this kind of unity. It is not enough just to hold the thought of the affirmation, nor is it enough just to feel it. We must become one with its essence. And the diagram there shows this becoming one at the superconscious level, the being level of the pattern itself of the affirmation. And so that's part 2 of our presentation completed.
Interesting.
There was a lot in that, and you probably really need to go back over it when we're able to do this YouTube presentation on this. But
Wow.
oh, Eva. Hi, Eva. Hello, Eva.
Hi. That was a lot to process.
Oh, that's why I'm suggesting that it's a good idea to, when we have the actual presentation done on YouTube, you can really have a good look at it, or get the book and really work with it with the book.
Yeah. I think we can try that out when we next meditate. I think that'd be quite interesting to do that, to see whether we drift off at a thought level to distractions, or if we get into the feeling stage, if we get feeling distractions. Because I think that's kind of what it is. It says we may easily get back into the feeling we were having before we started our meditation. I could relate to that idea. If you've got something on your mind, something bothering you, you could go into that feeling. So interesting.
I had to see a dentist on Tuesday to get a tooth extracted. I didn't know I was going to have a tooth extracted until I arrived there, but over 2 hours in the dental chair with my dentist trying to pull this tooth out, I was trying to meditate, but the distractions were just a bit too overwhelming.
Yeah. That's a good time to be able to meditate at will.
Yeah, look, I have been able to meditate during dental appointments before, but this was a bit of a very difficult distraction, or extraction.
Distractions are not easy. Yeah. Yeah, the extraction was a big distraction, right? Did you catch that, Eva? I'm glad you turned up. We missed you.
Well, I don't know what happened, because when I was trying to get access to my email didn't work. So sorry I'm late, but there was nothing I could do about it.
Oh, well, welcome.
Okay.
It'll be on YouTube, that's right.
Yeah, I do.
So we go on to the next one?
Yes, I think.
Okay, so continuing, meditation and the mind of man, chapter 4, meditation. In Mysticism, 1910, by Evelyn Underhill, we find a close parallel to this concept of 3 levels of experience in attunement. Underhill describes 3 stages of meditative experience, which are summarized below. Especially important to note is her warning that we must not think of meditation as stopping at the first or the second stage. 1, recollection, the first stage, is the most difficult because it involves going against the habits and impulses of the mind, which requires a determined act of will. An individual may spend years in this first stage. All the scattered interests of the self have here to be collected. There must be a deliberate and unnatural act of attention, a deliberate expelling of all discordant images from consciousness, from the consciousness, a hard and ungrateful task. Since the transcendental faculties are still young and weak, the senses not wholly modified, it needs a stern determination, a willful choice, if we are to succeed in concentrating our attention upon the whispered message from within, undistracted by the loud voices which besiege us from without. The second stage is the experience of quiet. It is a level of experience for which human speech has few equivalents, and which is characterized by an immense increase in the receptivity of the self and an almost complete suspension of the reflective powers. In this stage, the struggle to concentrate is gone, and a self-acting recollection is present. Many initially experience this stage as startling because of the deprivation of all accustomed mental workings. The quiet stage is potentially the most misleading to the spiritual seeker. The alert stillness of this state can turn to the limp passivity that has characterized quietism. The adherents of this movement have mistaken the peace and regeneration of this state to be the goal. Mystics who have understood that the quiet is not an end in itself have also been subjected to accusations that have been directed at the quietists. Quiet is the danger zone of introversion. Of all forms of mystical activity, perhaps this has been the most abused, the least understood. Its theory, seized upon, divorced from its context, and developed to excess, produced the foolish and dangerous exaggerations of quietism, and these in their turn caused wholesale condemnation of the principle of passivity and make many superficial persons regard naked orison, I'm not sure what that is, as an essential heretical act. The accusations of quietism has been hurled at mystics whose only fault was a looseness of language which led them open to misapprehension. Underhill describes quietism as absorption in nothing at all, with the purpose to luxuriate in its peaceful effects. She mentions the transcendentalists as examples of this movement, which suggests the possible conclusion that transcendental meditation, as currently taught in this country, but introduced long after Underhill's book was published, leads most of its followers into the temptation and potential entrapment of this second stage. Much of the teaching of modern mystical cults is thus crudely quietistic. It insists on the necessity of going into the silence, and even with a strange temerity, gives preparatory lessons in subconscious meditation, a procedure which might well provoke the laughter of the saints. The faithful being gathered together are taught by simple exercises in recollection the way to attain the quiet. By this mental trick, the modern transcendentalist naturally attains to a state of vacant placidity in which he rests, and remaining in a distracted idleness and misspending the time in expectation of extraordinary visits, believes, with a faith which many of the orthodoxy might envy, that he is here united with his principle. In contrast to this is the understanding that the quiet is a stage of preparation. It is only an opening of the door, and that which comes in when the door is opened will be that which we truly and passionately desire. In the third stage, which is called contemplation, the self transcends the stillness of quiet and is energized enthusiastically on those high levels which are dark to the intellect but radiant to the heart. The greatest contemplatives have been able to sustain this third state for only the briefest of moments. Underhill defines two conditions that are present in this experience. Whatever terms he may employ to describe it, and however faint or confused his perceptions may be, the mystic's experience in contemplation is the experience of the all, and this experience seems to be given rather than attained. This revealed reality is apprehended by ways of participation, not by way of observation. The passive receptivity of the quiet is here developed into an active, outgoing self-donation, which is the self's response to the divine initiative. Experiences in meditation. There are two types of experiences we may have in meditation, good and bad. Sometimes it is difficult to know which of the two is worse. We say this facetiously, of course, to highlight the fact that problems may arise from good meditation experiences as well as bad. If at the start we have some dramatically good experiences, we may come to think of meditation as being for experiences. If these do not continue, we may begin to doubt our approach, ourselves, or God. If we seem to have special success, we may develop ego involvement in it. The good experience may precede our level of commitment by requiring more of us than we are ready to give, and we may become fearful of handling the power or the responsibility. Some good meditation periods may lure us astray short of the highest attunement of which we are capable even at the time. Although there are beautiful, reassuring, and confirmatory experiences, these sometimes constitute special occasions to test the spirits. Beloved, believe not every spirit, but try the spirits whether they are of God. From John 1. On the other hand, those experiences, sometimes thought of as bad, may be more instructive than they appear at first glance. Some, such as the feelings of an explosion in the head, may be part of the healing and attunement process. Many of the visions that John tells of in the Revelation, which seem so catastrophic, may be properly interpreted as part of the ongoing transformation process of his extensive healing experience. Other bad experiences may simply warn us of improper technique and thus be rather more instructive than destructive. Some ask about the dangers of meditation. If meditation is understood practicing an awareness of his presence, it may be the safest and most saving activity in the world. Let us understand very clearly then that it is not meditation that is dangerous, but improper purpose and technique. Here, as much as in any phase of our lives, we must remember, make haste slowly, here a little, there a little, line upon line. There is a tendency in man to perceive events that happen within as taking place outside himself. We can see this condition demonstrated in the frequency with which individuals have built altars or shrines at places where they have had transformative experiences. This is especially evident in stories of Old Testament characters. For example, we have seen how the tabernacle worship was an external projection of an internal process. The problem for man arises when he builds up rituals in the external world, expecting to recreate a particular experience. We need to realize that it is not the manipulation of elements of the exterior world that will bring an experience, but only becoming sincere in our search. There is a tendency to translate inner events into outer ones. Warning one woman to be careful of this projective tendency, the readings instructed her to avoid seeing the goal of meditation as the achievement of an experience somewhere outside herself. Her question was, once, when meditating on distant objects, I experienced the sensation of being unpleasantly suspended at a great height in the universe, with the result that for some time afterwards, I feared the power of too effective a concentration of thought. Was there something wrong about the technique I used in trying to efface a sense of my physical ego? The answer was, turn within rather than holding to something above self. For know, the promise is that he shall meet thee within thine own temple. The technique then was in error. It is not above self, but within. For as ye raise the consciousness to that within self, he meeteth thee in thine own tabernacle, in the Holy of Holies, in the third eye, not above same. Many people have become frustrated with meditation because of their inability to have an experience of one kind or another. That which constitutes a good experience in meditation is difficult to judge. The only criterion that should be used to judge our own meditation is the changed life. It is manifested in the fruits of the Spirit, patience, kindness, faith, etc. The feeling of effective meditation is the feeling of love. The following reading was given for a man who had limited himself by setting specific goals for himself based upon what he had heard others had experienced. His question was, why don't I have more success with meditation? The answer was, oft we find individual activity becomes so personal in even the meditations that there is sought that this or that which may have been reported to have happened to another must be the manner of happening to self. But in this manner, there is cut away, there is built the barrier which prevents the real inner self from experiencing. Let self loose, as it were, for thy prayers ascends to the throne of grace ever. Only as self, though, meets out to the fellow man. Do not try or crave or desire a sign, for thou art in thyself a sign of that thou dost worship within thine inner self. A frequent question concerns out-of-body experiences. Certainly such an experience may happen during meditation, and it is not something which should be feared. Nevertheless, if we understand the purpose for being in the earth, we can see that this is not something we should try to make happen. We meet God within, not out somewhere else. Quote from Deuteronomy, "For this commandment which I command thee this day, it is not hidden from thee, neither is it far off. It is not in heaven, that thou shouldst say, who shall go up for us to heaven and bring it unto us, that we may hear it and do it. Neither is it beyond the sea, that thou shouldst say, who shall go over the sea for us and bring it unto us, that we may hear it and do it. But the word is very nigh unto thee, in thy mouth and in thy heart, that thou mayest do it." The promises of meditation. Although we have stressed the hoping for nothing, spirit of love, as being basic to proper meditation, we are also given many promises which we are invited to claim. From Malachi, "Prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it." Specific promises of the beneficial effects of meditation are numerous in the Edgar Cayce readings. Summarized, they say that meditation, properly practiced, will make one stronger physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, and consequently more able to be of help to others. Seeing, feeling, experiencing of that image in the creative forces of love enter into the Holy of Holies. As self feels or experiences the raising of this, see it disseminated through the inner eye, not the carnal eye, to that which will bring the greater understanding in meeting every condition in the experience of the body. Then listen to the music that is made as each center of thine own body responds to that new creative force that is being and that is disseminated through its own channel. And we will find that little by little, this entering in will enable self to renew all that is necessary in him, in meditation, when one has so purified self that healing of every kind and nature may be disseminated on the wings of thought. The magnitude of the potential effect of the regular practice of meditation cannot even be imagined. The secret of the golden flower promises that meditation is so powerful a tool for spiritual growth that it can allow a man to move beyond the karmic patterns that would draw him back into the earth for 1,000 incarnations. A quote from that: "If you only meditate for a quarter of an hour, by it you can do away with the 10,000 eons and 1,000 births. All methods end in quietness. This marvelous magic cannot be fathomed." Far and beyond these promises, however, the readings encourage us to read and claim as personally relevant all of the great promises of the Master. The Edgar Cayce information especially encourages us in the reading and personal acceptance of the assurance given in the 14th, 15th, 16th, and 17th chapters of John. The ARE book on this discourse given by Jesus, entitled A Closer Walk, should be the constant companion of every meditator practicing this approach. Here are some of the promises of the Master which should regularly inspire the meditator and of which we should constantly be assured. From Matthew 28:20, I am with you always, even unto the end of the world. From John 4:14, whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst, but the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up into everlasting life. From John 6:50-51, this is the bread which cometh down from heaven, that a man may eat thereof and not die. I am the living bread which came down from heaven. If any man eat of this bread, he shall live forever. And the bread that I will give is my flesh, which I will give for the life of the world. From John 14:1-3, let not your heart be troubled. Yea, believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye may be also. From John 14:6-7, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. If ye had known me, ye should have known my Father also. And from henceforth ye know him and have seen him. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth on me, the works that I do shall he do also. And the greater works than these shall he do, because I go unto my Father. And whatsoever ye shall ask in my name, that will I do, that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If ye shall ask anything in my name, I will do it. If ye love me, keep my commandments, and I will pray the Father, and he shall give you another comforter, that he may abide with you forever. Even the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive, because it seeth him not, neither knoweth him, but ye know him, for he dwelleth with you and shall be in you. I will not leave you comfortless, I will come to you. From John 14:12-18, and this one from John 16:13. When he, the Spirit of truth, is come, he will guide you into all truth. For he shall not speak of himself, but whatsoever he shall hear, that shall he speak, and he will show you things to come. And from Revelation 3:20-21, behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him and he with me. To him that overcometh will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I also overcame and am set down with my Father in his throne. And that is the end of the presentation of chapter 4. Thank you. Wow, that was a great little collection at the end there, wasn't it? All the words.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you look at Evelyn Underhill with her book Mysticism, written in 1910, So she was another one of those amazing people that were born in the late 1800s and just brought so much knowledge, wisdom to us. And it's just quite amazing.
Wow, yeah, that was interesting. Yeah. Yeah, good. I think I'm going to be revamping my meditation yet again. Every time we read this, kind of like, oh, there's more on meditation. We're going to have to change our meditations again.
You'll be an expert at the end of all this.
That's right. If we're doing it right, if we're practicing it right, but we're not trying to get it right.
Well, I think a lot of the forms of meditation and contemplation and everything that's around, so much of it is just focused on reaching that second stage, not the third stage.
Exactly. Being quiet. I have never understood meditation until reading Cayce material. I just kind of like, what is the point? You know, what are you supposed to do? What's the, you know, what's the advantage? What besides stress and, you know, relaxation? That was kind of it. I didn't really fully, I mean, there are other, you know, medical people talk about your blood pressure and your pulse and your, antidepressive, you know, like positivity. So there's that sort of all the general benefits, but this is a whole other level.
True meditation.
That's really good.
Not to say that the other forms aren't beneficial, but the whole idea of meditation is, I think in the first presentation, it was described as the Christ meditating through you. So you allow all of these things to happen. So you're not trying to force something to happen, you're allowing something to happen.
Yeah, it's good. Letting go and letting the mind being empty. I think that's a bit of a struggle, isn't it? And the feelings, having the spiritual feelings and not being distracted by your work problem or your family problem or whatever. Yeah.
Or the aeroplane flying overhead, or
like that. Yeah.
Or the next door neighbour starting his lawnmower just as you start to meditate.
Or the baby crying.
Yeah. All of these things. Or even the cat coming in, something like that.
Oh, yeah, that could be destructive. Oh, yeah. I have a question. Do you know, nu ska vi se om jag kan visa det.
Sounds.
Sounds for meditation. What sort of sounds are they? Is it music or?
No. I don't know how to describe it. Maybe I can share it. I'll try. We had Jim Commander who has used this one. He was a speaker at the Euro Congress in 2007, and he was presenting those. Uh-oh. No. There is one tune for each chakra. So it's världen är inaktiverad skärmbild. Okay. Can you put down the share to me?
Share for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Are you going to share your screen? Is that what you were thinking?
We lost Eva.
I think she's in deep meditation.
That's right. Thinking deeply. Oh,
Here
there
we
it
go.
is. Ah,
The sound isn't coming through.
hmm.
Oh, are you with I thought you didn't hear the sound of it.
No, there was no sound coming through at all.
I I don't know how to do that, but it was like one tune at a time, so it was really interesting. You can balance. You can use that kind of when you meditate, and he has made a sort of sound meditation according to the Lord's Prayer, also. So
Right. And that was
Right.
called, was that called Edgar Cayce Sounds for Meditation?
yes, yes,
There
Cool.
must
and
be
his
available
name is
somewhere.
Jim Commander.
Is that the name
Is
of the author?
Jim Commander.
Yeah.
When we used to meet in Melbourne many, many, many decades ago for our meetings, Jim Commander, okay.
Jim.
We used to have a tape that we used to play prior to meditation, which was harp music.
Ah,
And
Okay.
it was produced by two sisters that had been told they'd actually had readings from Edgar Cayce and were told that they used to play music at the Temple Beautiful in Egypt and that they could practice putting together music again now. And so they did. They put together harp music, which was we used to play prior to meditation just to relax and listen to. And it was just beautiful music. But that was, 40 years ago.
Mm.
I don't know whatever happened to that music, but
Probably in the archives at the
somewhere I'm sure it would be.
Yeah.
I mentioned they
And also he refers to this book that we are going through now, Man and Meditation.
Meditation and the Mind of Man.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So
he refers to that.
yeah,
I see. Yeah. Oh, good.
I think you can buy those. It's a CD, so
Yeah.
you can buy it on Amazon if you
So
want.
it's an audio book.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's good to know. I'd like to do a little bit more of that sort of thing, a bit more using sound. It's a shortcut, isn't it? It enhances
Yeah.
the experience. Yeah.
Okay.
And I was trying to use my forks, the turning forks,
Okay. Yeah.
the other night when I just before bedtime, but I couldn't sleep that night, so I got very excited about that. So I think I was awake in 3 or 4 hours that night. So I don't think it's good to do that so much in the evening before bedtime.
Yeah.
You have to do it on daytime if you can.
I'm going to I'll end the meeting now. Sorry, the recording of the meeting now.